Welcome to Parambrata. Thank you for coming here. Folks, today we have with us a very well-known face on especially the Bengali screen and also on the Indian cinema screen, Parambrata Chattopadhyay. And so he is with us, and we thought that maybe we would like to pick his brain, get some insights from him as to how his the acting and the film machinery works. So let's get some idea from him. So let's cut to the chase straight away. Parambrata is here to screen his film, new film called Kadambari, directed by Shuman Ghosh. And so Kadambari, folks, for people who are not familiar with the name, was Rabindranath Tagore's sister-in-law. And there are a lot of stories about Kadambari, the relationship between Kadambari and Rabindranath Tagore. So my question, the first question, Parambrata, I would like to ask you is, I will go into others later on, but my first question to you is, in this film you play Rabindranath Tagore, okay, and Rabindranath, as we all know, is an iconic figure, and people have their own imaginations about him, about own conceptions about him. So how did you approach this character? How did you approach this role?
To begin with, let me thank you for having me on this interview. It's entirely my pleasure to be speaking to you and to be speaking on this platform. My brain is all on offer to be picked.
Thank you.
And yes, and now to begin with the question, which is already picking my brain quite a bit, that is, how did I approach the idea of playing Tagore or Rabindranath Tagore? But let me put it very simply: what we decided upon in the end, with which we kind of hit the floors finally, was the simple idea that we are not going to approach Tagore the way people, especially Bengalis all over the world, they look at Tagore. The image or the idea of Tagore, by and large, that we have in our minds is of the bard, of this bearded bard,
right?
And that overall, wearing that kind of really long dress with a really long beard, and slightly balding gentleman, this colossal figure of Bengali intelligentsia,
Right.
But we will not approach Tagore keeping that image of his in mind. Rather, what we would do is we will look at Tagore as a man in his early 20s, very, very charming young man, young, charming, urban, upper middle class individual who has just entered the world of poetry. He's an emerging poet and is an absolute charmer himself. He likes beauty in all its forms. He likes the company of beautiful women. He likes the company of beautiful poetry. He likes everything beautiful. And also as someone who has grown up with this woman who happens to be his sister-in-law, his elder brother's wife, who he has grown up with and who he has perceived more as a playmate than anything else since his early teens, and when both of them are in their early and mid-20s respectively, she is someone that Tagore perceives as sort of a muse, actually. So we will look at Tagore in this film as a young, charming poet rather than the very serious bard that we
yes,
are used to.
Typically capturing his early
Correct.
teens.
Absolutely.
and also the very youth of
late teens
Tagore.
and early youth. Yeah.
The thing is, maybe this question is more appropriate for the director Shumon, but even I can ask you, is Kadambari and Rabindranath's relationship has been, discussed a lot by the intelligentsia, by the writers,
by authors, by writers, by
everybody.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, this film I haven't seen it. I have seen glimpses of it from the trailer.
Correct.
I'm eager to see it tomorrow. But in this film, the approach to the character itself, as when you try to prepare yourself for the character as an actor, what did you get into? I mean, how did you prepare yourself for the role? I mean, unlike any other character.
Right. See, it wasn't an easy task for Shumon, I would say, because as you said yourself, it was quite a difficult. It's quite difficult to approach a subject like this because wherever Tagore is involved, it's an extremely sensitive matter as far as Bengalis are concerned, and also since we are primarily dealing with Tagore's personal life here, especially, there are a lot of musings and there are a lot of anticipations or imaginations about the exact nature of the relationship between Tagore and Kadambari Devi. We decided that Shumon and I, and Shumon, the entire team, we decided that we are going to keep it at the level of this relationship being that of a young bard, of a young poet and his muse. Okay. We are not going to get into any further details because, to be honest, we do not know the details. Right. The details are subject to complete conjecture.
And unlike some other authors or some other critics,
exactly, there are a lot of authors who have claimed a lot of things about the relationship, but we always felt that they are mainly matter of conjecture. Actually, they were all guessworks primarily. So, since we do not really have a very firm basis of truth as far as the nature of the relationship is concerned, we are going to keep it. We're going to stop at hinting towards the fact that there was something between these two individuals which was a little more than friendship. But what was it, the exact nature of it? We're going to keep it, we're going to just leave it for the audience to imagine, not really go into explicit details. And so that was one part of the difficult task that Shumon and I and Konkona and all of us, we had in our hands. The other part, I think, is if you're asking me how I prepared myself to play the part, as I told you already, it was the first thing that we needed to get out of the way was the one thing that we needed to get out of our way was the burden of playing Tagore. It can actually get to your head, because you're playing a character which is nothing less than Rabindranath Tagore
himself. Yes.
Yeah, himself. So that really can get to your head. It's like playing Jesus Christ, almost. Yeah. So you really have to get that out of your head that you're playing somebody like Rabindranath Tagore. You just have to go to the floors normally.
And so you have approached it just as a young poet.
As a young poet.
I mean, who
belongs to a different era than that of mine. Mm-hmm. Who belong to a completely different time than that of mine. And something which really helped me, I think, was my attire and my the makeup that I had to get into by wearing that big fat wig and the false beard and the moustache and those men from the Tagore family in the 19th century they were in the 20th century rather, not the 19th century but the 20th century, mid 20th century. They were extremely particular about what they wore and how they dressed, and they took great care of themselves. So I also had to pluck my eyebrow for the very first time. So all of that done, I kind of felt that I was already getting into that state of the makeup and the garments. They really helped, I must say, because it automatically restricted my movements, and we were shooting in some of the oldest houses in Kolkata, and so the ambience of those kind of colonial architecture and the Indo-Saracenic styles of architecture, and my beard and my wig and those dresses and everything,
and maybe the set,
and everything. That's what I'm saying. The set and everything, and the way Konkona dressed, and all of that, it automatically put us into the mood,
transported you to that,
completely transported us to the.
That's great. In fact, I guess that's what sometimes triggers an actor.
Oh yes, it does.
Get into the role, into the character. Yep. I'm really looking forward to watch this film tomorrow, and hopefully, I'm sure it's a good film. I saw the glimpses that I saw; they looked fascinating. So we'll take a look. Now let's talk about something else. Let's talk about filmmaking a little bit. You have been, as far as I know, that you're trained as a filmmaker.
Sort of, yes.
Sort of. I mean, but mostly you do acting. You've done a couple of films, as far as my records goes.
Correct.
So, what do you think about it? Do you think that you spend more time on acting, or you'd like to get into filmmaking more?
Well, this will take us back to what I originally intended to do and what I eventually did. So, since my early or mid-teens, I always wanted to be a filmmaker. But
And then you come from a family which is
of filmmakers,
really,
yes,
yeah.
of filmmakers, of film critics, and of film writers, and so by the time I was in the 9th or the 10th grade, I was kind of sure that I would be working in the world of films, but at that point in time, my intention was always to work behind the camera as a filmmaker or as an editor, and that is how I was preparing myself in my head. Acting happened as an accident, primarily as an accident, and then it became a happy accident.
Peluda?
No, it was before that. It was a couple of about a year before Peluda, with a few television series actually, a couple of them, and then that accident kind of continued, and by the time I was doing Peluda, I realized that I've been dabbling with acting for a while now, for 1 or 2 years now. I've been part of some important television projects. Now I'm doing a big film. So either I take this seriously or I do not. So I decided to take it seriously, because it was earning me a handsome amount of money.
Yes,
So,
obviously.
So and which I needed at that point in time, which we needed, I should say. So I continued with that. But the desire to make films, it always remained with me. So I started directing for television by the time I was 23 or something. So I started making small TV films. And when I was about 27, I decided that I've had my share of acting, I've had my share of recognition as an actor. I decided to quit TV and decided to graduate to films completely. At the same time,
I remember you used to do the take a break and other thing.
Yeah.
In fact, Mitali, my wife, you did a show with her once.
Really?
A long time ago.
Okay. So
she's a singer, so yeah.
Okay. So I decided to quit TV and graduate to films completely, and I also decided to complete my masters. And for that, I wanted to finish do my masters in filmmaking. So I applied for a course in the UK as well as a scholarship with the same. Fortunately, I got through both, and I went for a master's in film and TV production in the United Kingdom with the University of Bristol, actually. Right. So once I came back after completing my masters, I sort of thought that this would kind of mean that I would be sort of bidding farewell to acting and would be concentrating more on making movies. But as luck would have it, actually, once I came back, the most prolific phase of my acting career began post my return, actually.
Right. Okay.
Because
it was in which time frame?
It was 2010, end 2010. Okay. So I came back with the shoot of Kahani starting in exactly 3 days' time. I got the offer for Kahani while I was still in England, actually. So I came back from England after finishing my masters. It was Durga Puja 2010, and the shooting began exactly 3 days later for Kahani. Then happened Baisha Shrabon, then happened Bhutir Bhavishya, then happened Hemlock Society, then happened Jani Dakbabe, then March Mishri and more. So I just, I became more known as an actor than I was before. This is the strange turn of fate that happened. And I realized that, not everybody gets this opportunity to be so recognized and so appreciated for their performances in movies. Now that I am getting the opportunity, it would be unfair to, kick it off and actually. But at the same time, I kept making my films, which I wanted to. Maybe one film in 2 years, roughly. That's the ratio at which I make films. I made Hawa Badul, I've made Lodai. I'm about to start on another project in 2016. A couple of projects, actually, not one.
Because in the film Chotushkon, you were also in a couple of films. You also acted the
I've
role of a filmmaker.
I've played filmmakers. yes, absolutely, yes.
You have also Kahani also gave you a huge break, right?
Right.
Getting into the mainstream Bollywood.
National
National level.
recognition, yes.
Right. And also, I understand you also did a stint in a Hollywood movie, right?
Yeah.
Which is The Sold.
Yeah.
And by Jeffrey Brown.
Correct.
And tell us something about that experience of doing with Jeffrey Brown.
Right. So Soul is a film which Jeffrey kind of really appreciated my work in Kahani and got in touch with me. Jeffrey watched Kahani and got interested in my performance, and so he went on to watch a couple of my Bengali films.
Right.
And he really liked the work that he saw, and he called me, and then we had a Skype conversation, and the film was also Soul was also being shot entirely in Kolkata. That added to the list of conveniences, list of advantages that I had over the other actors for that particular part. So we zeroed in on the dates and everything, and then we shot the film. It was a very nice experience. I've always thought that because I also did my masters in the United Kingdom, I, as opposed to a very sort of a misconception of a lot of people in India, people tend to think that in Hollywood or in the West, people make films. Every film is made with a lot of money and with a lot of time. That's a very, very wrong conception, which a lot of people have. So in Soul, while shooting for Soul, I was again reassured of my idea that everybody works within a budget, everybody works within a limited time frame. It's just a matter of homework, and it's just a matter of kind of shooting your film before you hit the floors in your head.
Correct.
And applying it just on the floors. Yeah. So that's the way Soul is shot. I'm waiting to see the film. I haven't seen the film, although it has been about 2.5 years now. The film has been...
I've read some very good reviews of it.
Yes, so have I. And it so happened in 2013, two of my films traveled to the London Indian Film Festival, and both the films, one became the jury's choice for the best film, and one became the popular choice for the best film. Soul became the popular choice for the best film at the London Indian Film Festival, and Apur Panchali became the jury's choice.
Right.
So it has been traveling to a lot of festivals, and I keep getting mails from Jane, the producer, as well as Jeffrey. I do not know about a probable release date. I think they are in the process of finalizing it. I believe Emma Thompson, I think, has taken up the responsibility of presenting the film.
Okay.
Yes. That's
I'll search for that film if it is released in some form to figure it out, because the premise of the film sounded very interesting. Very interesting.
It is quite exciting.
And I myself, being a person of the stage, I'd like to ask you this question: have you ever been on stage or want to be on stage?
I've been on the stage. I've done a few plays, but unlike most actors, unlike about 95% of actors, my journey has not been from stage to screen. In fact, only the couple of plays that I've done, all of them I've done post my career as an actor began with the screen. I've gone back to the stage on request of a few friends and with a few repertoires actually. I love the stage. I love watching plays. I'm a student of literature. Before I studied filmmaking myself, I'm a student of literature, so I have a certain association with the classics, the plays. Having said that, I as a person, I think I'm essentially a screen person in the sense, because my sensibilities about acting, they germinate essentially from my ideas, my evolved ideas about filmmaking, not from a passion to be part of the histrionics. Because I never thought of being an actor, right? I always thought of being a filmmaker. So my perception of performance, my perception of images, my perception of histrionics is essentially film-driven, not stage-driven. So I found it initially in my early years as an actor, sometimes I found it difficult to be on the same page with some of my co-actors, because them hailing from strictly a theatre background, they had different ideas of histrionics, whereas I had completely different ideas, because again,
Yes.
I would watch
Your
acting
grooming has been different.
very
totally.
different, because I always watch acting from a filmmaker's point of view, and from I had a better, probably I had a slightly better grasp of the entire process of filmmaking than those of my co-actors who came from a theatre background. They would just want to continue with the performance,
Right.
whereas they believed in the continuum of action, whereas I always knew that no, I'm not supposed to do that, because there are going to be cuts, the camera's going to move to the other angle, there's going to be a track in, there's going to be a dolly in, there's going to be a bit of a crane there. So I always looked at acting in a very fragmented way.
Moment to moment.
Absolutely, yeah. So, because I was always very aware of the entire process of filmmaking, because I was preparing myself as a filmmaker, not as an actor.
Great. Now, one quick question maybe is, you have been in mainstream Indian movies, which is popular in Bollywood. We have been in Hollywood film making.
One quick correction. Okay. I do not think I've been in mainstream Bollywood films, because even today, mainstream Bollywood or even mainstream Bengali filmmaking films, they mean films with a lot of singing and dancing. Kahani, although it was a huge hit, even then Kahani would still go down as something a little on the alternative space. And even the Bengali films that I do, that I'm keeping on doing now, or that I'm doing in the future, they are also in the alternative space. Now, in Bengali cinema, the trend of the last 5 to 7 years has been that these so-called alternative films are more in currency than the quote-unquote mainstream flicks.
So in fact, you have answered my question.
Yeah.
In some
Okay.
way. That's what I was going to ask, is to what difference you feel in Bengali films currently versus the mainstream and other films in the on the genre. Okay, now quickly, I'll ask you a few questions or words, and give me the response in this rapid fire thing.
Okay.
Immediately.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Satyajit Ray,
Maverick.
Ritik Ghatak,
Genius.
Shapon Saha,
Lucrative.
big screen.
Still the best form of film viewing.
Thank you very much.